And again from Rio Tinto, I'm delighted to introduce Loren. Loren also has an interesting past, which I think you should probably touch on. But we welcome you to unmute and share a little bit about your journey so far.
Thank you, Amanda. And look, I just want to say thanks to Laura and Amy. It's really strange. Obviously, we've graduated university or studying at university at different times, but we all share some really common things where we find the sense of community within the engineering cohort. We find that even though maybe you don't tick all the boxes, you still put yourself forward for certain things and suddenly you're successful. And I think, I mean, ultimately it's about overcoming some of those personal fears of thinking that you're just not good enough, or you might not fit, or you're not making the right choice, but then just taking that small risk and putting yourself out there. So look, thank you. I'm quite honored to be sharing the spotlight with both you, Laura and Amy. So thanks for your insights. I guess a little bit about myself. I have a Bachelor of Engineering, majoring in mining from the University of Queensland. Prior to that, I also studied at University of New South Wales, where I got a Bachelor of Commerce, where I did a double major of Hospitality Management, Marketing and Tourism. And later in life, even though I'm now getting on in years, I decided also to go back to do another degree, but that's more about following some personal passions that just sit within the realm of curiosity and just searching for more information, that continuous learning. So I guess the way in which I became an engineer might not be as traditional as some of the other cohort, although Amy, obviously your journey is also quite special. The way in which I arrived was coming through, no, that's okay, we can move on. Was coming from a background which wasn't necessarily an engineering produced push from school. So when I studied high school, year 11 and 12, I didn't do those traditional courses that then made entry into engineering really easy. What I didn't do was chemistry or physics. And just talking to Amy just then about and also Laura hinting on the fact that maybe you don't need to do all of the criteria to apply for a university degree. You can do some of it and maybe get into science. And that's how I got to do engineering, got into a science degree, did my first semester and did a physics course, and then transferred within the university over to engineering. But going well back before that, when I finished high school, I had a wide variety of interests, but I really didn't even think that engineering was on my plate. And I was in fact encouraged not to pursue a career in environmental engineering, which was where I was quite passionate about, and in fact go down the commerce route. So I went to University of New South Wales, I did a commerce degree. I graduated after 4 years doing the double major. And I said to myself, well, what's my job? Where's my passion? What do I do? And I just decided to move to Italy instead and never use my degree. I moved over there and didn't speak the language, didn't know anybody. It was the time for the Winter Olympics. I got there, it was freezing cold in the north of Italy. And I carved out a life there, and I lived there for 4 years, and I became a primary school teacher. And, I had to have this moment to say, well, if I want to do well in my career and I want to do well in life, I should really go back and study either education, because that's clearly where I've ended up, or follow a path that I'm quite passionate about. And what I did was I had a little bit of a reflection of where I was then. So this is this is 8 years after leaving high school. So, I made a choice, first of all, to go to university because it was the right thing to do. And I thought it was the right direction that I should be taking in. I then followed some passions about living free and eating pizza and drinking great wine and having, the cultural experience. But when I actually had a look at what my personality, my capabilities, my interests, and where some of those things could fit, I really recognized that for me, engineering ticked quite a few of those boxes. So my personality, I'm quite creative. I really enjoy the creative side of engineering. So, at high school, I did art, and then I dropped it off because it didn't get me the right score. I went to a private school, and that's another conversation to be had. But, it's, I really enjoy the idea of drawing and being able to get my ideas down on paper. I'm enthusiastic and I love working with people, and I like having a decision, but I also like being adaptable to certain things. And so with engineering, there's a world which is just constantly changing. It's not just one direction, one way. It's not like accounting where this is the way in which you balance a ledger. There are many ways to balance a ledger in engineering. I was also quite honest and logical about my approach to problems, and I enjoyed working with groups of people. And that led into some of the capabilities that I had. So teamwork, I loved working with a team, but I was also quite happy to work on my own. And I guess in that sense, it showed that I was quite a leader in some of the communities that I was working in. I enjoyed communicating with people, so I had strong communication and interpersonal skills. And I really was about prioritizing an organization. So when it comes to engineering, yes, a lot of it is to do with number crunching and using computer programs, but it's also about being able to prioritize your tasks, being able to look at what's the most important, what panel or bridge is burning right now that we have to concentrate on before then moving on to the next thing. I was also interested in games and puzzles. As a kid, I loved doing a puzzle. I loved, just sitting down on the ground doing jigsaws. As I got older, there was Sudoku that came out. I really loved being in nature. My family is very strong in bird watching. And I also just really loved the idea of travel, which, Amy already touched base on. She got an opportunity to travel. She's now doing a FIFO job. She's moved across to the other side of the country. And I guess that was something that, engineers are applicable everywhere. It's a common language, it's a common necessity across the world. So it wasn't just, being stuck potentially in my first degree, which was either behind a computer doing accounting, or maybe just doing something that didn't make me feel passionate. The other thing was that I really wanted a tangible career. So I'd come across, this, 8 years of life, almost just discovering myself, discovering my direction of what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was make a strong decision in my next step to actually have something that I could hold on to, do an engineering degree, become an engineer, do well in that engineering career until I retire. Something very tangible. It's not the same as maybe going and doing an arts liberal degree where you graduate with something that's not quite so tangible, that you have to struggle to find yourself in an industry, and then potentially that industry being very competitive. Engineering ticked all of those boxes. And the honesty of it all is, yes, I was interested in money. And I know that because I was a primary school teacher for 4 years, and it was really hard. And to be honest, when I came back and I got accepted by university, I got accepted by the University of New South Wales and also UQ to do science, so that I could pick up that one physics course that I didn't pick up when I was doing year 12. But realistically, the choice to come to UQ was one based on the fact that it's Queensland. I'd never lived here before. It was another opportunity to do something amazing with my life. It was another opportunity to work or to study at one of the best universities in Australia. And so just making the move back was great. And, doing that though was also a sacrifice because I now no longer worked. I went from a full-time job to a full-time student, and it was really challenging. But like some of the other ladies on this call have already mentioned, you get involved with societies, you meet people, it leads to opportunities. And so actually I worked for UQ Sport throughout my degree as a casual employee, convening netball, working for some of the school programs, the holiday programs, looking after kids, doing gymnastics with them, just really connecting with a wider cohort of the university. And it was great because you got to meet people, and some of those people I've actually bumped into outside of university. This is all quite challenging because at the time I was a mature age student, and I'm having fun with a bunch of 18-year-olds. It was good. They had a different way of living at the time than I did, but it was one goal in the engineering cohort was to get that degree and just to get out there into the workforce. So why I chose engineering was it really fitted into the personality, the capabilities, and my interests. Something that Laura and Amy touched on was that, you make some really important impacts in the world. And I think really when I look back at some of the life career moments or the career milestones that I've had, it really is all about what I've been doing in the last part of my world, my career, which is all about engineering. So moving from Italy, it was fantastic. Don't get me wrong. It was an amazing life that I lived, and I learned a lot. I learned to speak a new language, and I learned a way of loving the slow life. But that gave me a really deep appreciation for loving something that was more structured. And coming to university, that idea of being a mature age student, doing the hard work, making that monetary sacrifice. I followed that passion into the mining cohort. That was also because my parents had been in mining and previously had influenced me in certain ways. But during that, I really decided that I wasn't like the rest of my cohort. I wasn't 18, and I was sacrificing a lot of money to go to university. And so what I made, one of my main goals in my first year of university was to put myself out there to industry and actually get myself some casual and part-time work so that I would be able to work throughout each of my holiday periods, so both winter and summer, in an industry, so that I could potentially fast track my career so that when I graduated, I could then hit the ground running and start actually climbing that career ladder. So I was really lucky. I made some. I put myself out there. It was quite an overwhelming experience to reach out to professionals in the industry, and I basically asked them, could I do anything in my winter holidays? I don't care what it is. I would love to get out onto a mine site, and I'd like to start working. And at the time, Tees was the company that I'd approached, and they said, "Yes, look, just go for it. We see something in you, Loren. You've put yourself out there. Let's have a relationship that's ongoing. We'll employ you casually from your first year through to when you graduate, and then we'll see if you fit into the graduate program." So I was lucky enough to do that with Tees. I fast-tracked the grad program. I graduated halfway through the year, similar to Amy, and then I finished that grad program that same year. So instead of doing 2 years, I did 6 months. Because of the number of workplaces I had collectively worked over a year on a mine site before graduating, I was then also nominated Grad of the Year and won that award, which was quite humbling. It was just a fantastic opportunity. And during my casual and part-time work in graduate program, I got to work on a number of different mine sites. I got to do remote living where, it was just getting to know local communities, getting to know the people who had been in the industry for like 40 years, and just really putting myself out of my comfort zone, but also into a new world where I felt that I could actually make an impact. One of the really exciting things that I was involved with was the design of the total rehabilitation final landform, which is just the way in which the land is shaped after a mine is closed. I got to do that as a graduate for Tees. And I think that was, something where I said to myself, this is an area that I could leave a legacy. I can actually put a positive impact out there and improve the mining industry. I can make a change that historically has not been done so well with mining. I then continued a bit of a traditional career path. I went from grad to mining engineer role, both in the head office in Brisbane, but out on sites as well. I then also went into a senior mining engineering role. And after about 7 years with Tees, I decided that I'd like to try something different and give consulting a little bit of a go. Now, the nice thing about consulting and also contracting is that you get lots of variation. You get to do a lot of travel, and you get to work for a lot of different clients, which means you can understand what's the better way or the best way of doing certain things if you compare different clients to each other. So that was a little bit of a traditional path for me. But then again, there was this change where I decided that, it's all good that I'm doing all of this great stuff in my own career, but it would be great if I could actually start influencing and helping develop others. So a little bit of a change, and the way that this slide sort of shows these strange flips in my life, or pivots as we like to call them now in industry, is that curvy arrow from one path to the next. I then got a role as the principal of learning and development for MEC Mining, which was a consultancy I worked for. And I started the graduate program within that because of my great experience with the grad program with TEAS. I took a lot of the learning that I had from that, and I've implemented it and helped develop about 40 engineers over the last 3 years. And then I also started giving back to industry and giving back to community. And this is one of the things that really, I think it's one of the most important things as being an engineer. You learn so much, and you get so much experience, and you can leave a legacy out there in industry. But unless you actually give it back to the community, unless you volunteer your time or you put yourself out there in different networks and help mentor people, I don't think you really get a fulfilling career, in my own opinion. So I did a lot in that space. I then did another pivot, and I became business development manager for the company. Got to meet a lot of different people, a lot of different senior members within the mining industry. And then one final pivot to where I am now was where I decided that, in fact, I actually really enjoy the technical space. And although I will never leave behind the passion for assisting others with their learning and development and upskilling along the way, I'm also quite excited about the next steps, which I think Laura has just touched on, which is really exciting. It's to do with decarbonisation, which is such a long, strange word that you might not have heard of, but it's basically just helping make mining a better environmentally friendly industry. And that's where I am now working for Rio. So I've just finished my first 2 months with Rio. I work in group technical, and I'm a principal advisor for surface mining. This is quite a specialized area. I work with some amazing people who have implemented and invented technology that, just blows your mind. Rio is one of those leaders out there in industry. We've had autonomous haul trucks, so trucks without drivers, for the last 15 years. We're looking at implementing green surface mines where, everything is electrification. So everything's run off electricity, and that electricity is provided from green sources such as solar or wind or hydro. It's just a really exciting time to be involved in the mining industry. So I look back at my career so far, and it's gone from being quite a male-dominated area to quite a balanced workplace for women. There are definitely areas that can be improved, but there are so many opportunities, and there's so many different varying roles that engineers can play. And as you can see in my career, I've changed 3 or 4 different times, and of the last, 4 changes, 2 of them were definitely not in that same, path that traditional engineering degrees would have led you to. So the world's pretty much your oyster, but it's a tangible career, and it's a way in which you can actually give back to community. And I guess some tips and for a satisfying and successful career in engineering. And I'm not saying I know it all or have even, touched the top of the iceberg on all of this. But, what I have understood is that you need to recognize what is a hobby and what is a career. And for me, teaching has come full circle from when I was in Italy teaching children how to speak English, through to now where I actually assist in putting training programs together to upskill engineering cohorts. But my career was engineering, and it wasn't teaching. Teaching is something that I'm quite passionate about and I enjoy doing, but the career is something that I can sink my teeth into, that I can really feel like I can leave a legacy. I've had a 2-year-old daughter 2 years ago, and I love the idea that my world that I'm creating now through my engineering degree will be a better world in the future for her because of the impact that we have. I also think that you can only do this if you can get as much real world experience during your time at university. So if you can get placements, if you can just get, even if it's unpaid work, so that you can experience what it's like to work in that specific industry, you'll know that by the time you graduate, that that's the right thing for you. You also might find out that it's a hobby and it's not something that you really want to be chasing after all. But at least you know now, rather than for me, after 8 years having to go back to university. I also think that you need to have a look at what your career will look like in 5 or 10 years' time. So if you go and do an arts degree and you do art history, and then you say to yourself, what is out there for art historians at the moment? It is a totally different playing field than if you were going to do engineering. The world out there for engineers in 5 and 10 years is going to be so huge. The opportunities are going to be massive. And the work that you're going to be involved with is so exciting. And in fact, I can't even tell you what it will be about because we don't know, because technology is changing so fast, but engineers will be involved in all of it. I also think that you need to stay happy. You're going to be working at least for 40 years of your life. If you win the lotto, good on you, and then you can retire. But you need to do something that makes you happy and that you're passionate about. One of the things that I didn't enjoy when I was teaching was just looking around. I mean, I love the children, I love the parents, I love the passion that I brought to the job, but I looked at the other teachers and they weren't really happy. And I just thought, is that something that I want to get to? Or do I want to be happy and passionate about something for the rest of my life? And I think also if you decide that you're not happy or that you lose your passion, that you actively change your direction. Even in the mining industry, I talk to people who've been in, for 20 to 30 years and they're just not happy. And life's too short. Stop what you're doing, put a minimum of 3 years on any role that you do. It doesn't matter if you stay within a company for more than 3 years, but the role that you're doing, do it for 3 years and then change, because you'll become stagnant and you just need to move on to be happy. Take that leap of faith. Don't turn down jobs because you're looking for the perfect job. To be honest, it may not exist. And the way in which engineering is changing these days, you'll probably be able to get a job and then change that job into the job that you really wanted anyway. So take every opportunity that comes up, even if you're not 100% qualified. And this is one thing that really does affect women more than men. We're less risk takers than men and sometimes hold back because we don't think that we have 100% of the qualities that are needed to do the role. I'm saying don't do that. Jump forward, put your hand up. If you're not accepted for the first role that you're putting your hand up for, people at least know that you're putting yourself out there and will think of you in the future for potentially another role. And keep learning, be inquisitive, be curious. You never know how that'll impact your future. So obviously I've gone back to university to study wine science. It's nothing to do with mining engineering. In fact, obviously you're not supposed to be drinking on any engineering role. So don't nothing to do with each of the things. But I love wine and I love the chemistry behind it. And I love the idea that it's bucket science. There's so many amazing things that you can do in that science world that affects my Friday afternoon drink when I get home from work. I love that there is just, my brain, I just want to keep growing it. And I want to learn about things out there. And, I'm not saying go ahead and do another degree. I'm a little bit crazy, but at least go ahead and listen to a tech talk or go to a networking event where you meet interesting people and you learn about things. Like I said, the world's changing really quickly, and being part of an engineering degree and then a career in engineering means that you're probably going to be the pinpoint that holds it all together, the glue that sticks all of these interesting conversations together, because we'll be involved with everything in the future.